It's my nerd world, and welcome to it. I'm your host, John Justice, with this review of the new Netflix science fiction movie, Atlas, starring Jennifer Lopez. I'm a massive science fiction fan. If you follow any of my podcasts, you know this already, but I've been a fan of science fiction ever since I saw Star Wars as a kid when I was 5 years old. So anytime there's new science fiction content, especially one that leans into the space opera genre, which Atlas does, my interest gets piqued, and often it's unfortunately left disappointed. I'm happy to say I was pleasantly surprised with this latest science fiction film from Netflix. So let me start off here. I put this movie into the category of other Netflix science fiction movies that have come out within recent years, Adam Project being one, a science fiction film that I also very much enjoyed. And when I say enjoyed, I mean I was entertained when I watched it, and more than likely I will go back and rewatch it at some point in time. Adam Project I've watched a few times since then. Also, more recently, 65 with Adam Driver, which was released theatrically, now available on Netflix. If you haven't seen that science fiction film, sort of a bit of a space opera combined with Jurassic Park, absolutely worth a watch. And the caveat that I want to put on this is, had I gone to see this film in the movie theater, I don't think I would have left disappointed, but I probably wouldn't have appreciated it as much as I did watching it on Netflix. Is this Jennifer Lawrence starring science fiction movie fantastic? No, but I was highly entertained. And as I finished watching it with my 17-year-old son, who also was like, Netflix can produce some bangers in his terms, I was talking to my wife, who didn't watch it with us, that, for the subscription price that I pay for Netflix, it makes it more than worth it to get films like this. I will absolutely go back and watch it again. And I watched this a few days ago, and it's kind of stuck with me. So let's get a bit into the movie and what I enjoyed about it. First off, for some context as well, this was directed by Brad Peyton. And if that name isn't familiar to you, you're probably it's probably not a surprise at all. He has made some decent films in the past. So he was the director of Rampage, based off the video game with Dwayne Johnson, which I quite enjoyed. Also, Journey to the Mysterious Island, which I know my sons enjoyed growing up, and San Andreas. Rampage and San Andreas and Journey to, all movies that we own on Blu-ray, and given the opportunity, I would probably purchase Atlas for Blu-ray, as I'm a collector of physical media, and streaming to me still is lacking in the clarity department, especially when you get into the darker scenes. When you go into watching a streaming movie and it's the only way that it's available, I shove that absolutely aside. The story, I'm not going to spoil anything for the sake of this review, but the brief synopsis on Netflix is: a brilliant counterterrorism analyst with a deep distrust of AI discovers it might be her only hope when a mission to capture a robot goes awry. Now, this movie pays homage or homage, however you want to say it, to a lot of other films, and it's pretty blatant in doing so. There are nods to Aliens. There are nods a bit to Avatar. Certainly video game nods, like Titanfall. There are nods to AI, the film AI. There are nods to The Terminator, as all these films have very similar genre tropes among them. So my first question going into seeing this movie was Jennifer Lopez. It seemed like odd casting. The trailer had me hooked. You got spaceships, you've got mech machines, we're on distant planets, you've got lasers and advanced weaponry. It looks like this is set in the future. All right, this all got me sold, but Jennifer Lopez seems like an odd choice. Oddly, however, it wasn't. When you are given sort of the background of this character, and this is a personal story for her, dealing with the fact that her mother was a scientist helping to create AI, and this aspect of her past unfolds throughout the film. This is sort of a reluctant hero. Watching the trailer and seeing her in this mech suit all confused and looking at this particular actress and thinking, why is she in this type of film? It fits in the role that she has. She understands the technology. She's been involved in the technology. And there are revelations down the line in the story that lend itself to believability as to why this character is able to do certain things, and hoping that's not being too spoilerish. It is set in the future. The technology was absolutely believable in its context of being set in the future. The set pieces were great, interesting in terms of traveling to other planets and giving us something unique to look at. Had a pretty solid cast beyond Jennifer Lopez in this film. It actually feels like a movie that may have been pointed for the big screen, but perhaps Netflix purchased it, and they decided it was a better option to have this on Netflix than it was on the big screen. And quite honestly, I think it probably was. The budget for this film was only $100 million, and considering how inexpensive it was, they did a really, really good job with an incredibly small budget. The special effects are good. A lot of CGI. No CGI that really took me out of the film itself. I mean, we've kind of reached this level with CGI where you really have to have a super small budget to have it look bad. And while this was something on streaming, I don't know how well it would hold up on TV. It wasn't necessarily on par with what you would see in terms of the special effects and CGI in a show, on Disney Plus, whether it's Andor or Ahsoka. But it was absolutely serviceable for what my expectation was going into the show. Some very unique technology. The cityscapes looked fantastic. And the story itself, for a movie that runs a solid 2 hours, never lost interest, kept me absolutely entertained. And it was one of these movies that as it moved forward, I kept thinking to myself, this is actually pretty good. I was surprised. I went in with fairly low expectations and came out on the other side going, I'm really looking forward to watching this film again. The setup at the beginning, and this isn't necessarily a spoiler, but to give you sort of an idea of how it pays homage to, say, Aliens. The setup in the beginning actually has a storyline that runs incredibly similar to the beginning of Aliens, where you have Jennifer Lopez would be in the Ripley role. She is the only one with a particular skill set and information for a target located on a distant planet, and ends up hitching a ride with a bunch of space marines as they go to tackle this enemy for fear that this particular enemy might return to Earth and wipe out Earth. And as I'm watching it, I'm going, okay, this is clearly meant to evoke the same setup as Aliens. And I wasn't annoyed at all in the movie doing that. It seemed pretty clear that this was, hey, this is a good setup. We're using it again in this movie, and it absolutely works. You have this relationship, if you will, between the AI suit, which is in the trailer, the mech suit, and Jennifer Lopez. And there is a story element of conflict that provides for a lot of unique and interesting dialogue and funny dialogue as well. The writing in it was solid. Again, considering the budget and this being a Netflix movie, I was surprised at how well written it was. And I'll take this and compare it to something like Rebel Moon. I don't know how much they spent on Rebel Moon, but by example, I know they spent $180 million for the 8 episodes of The Acolyte. So we have to wait to see how much that ends up on screen for that live-action Disney Plus Star Wars show, where this movie cost $100 million. But at $100 million in a 2-hour movie, I will absolutely watch Atlas again. The writing was better. The effects were just as good. The action was arguably better. The story was better. It kept my interest better than, say, Rebel Moon did. And those were 2 full feature-length movies. I would absolutely recommend Atlas if you have the opportunity to watch it, if you have Netflix, if you've been on the fence about this film. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I look forward to watching it again. I should probably mention Sterling K. Brown. This is an actor that I enjoy quite a bit. I wish he was in the movie more, but the times that he is in the movie, he absolutely works. He's a fantastic character actor. Mark Strong is in the film as well. Again, not in it for a bunch of the movie, but the times when he is in it, absolutely enjoyable. There are some moments of cheesiness of what you can expect. It plays out the typical sort of action tropes, and as you work towards the end, there's a level of predictability in the movie, but nothing that ruined it at all. And as a matter of fact, when you get to the end, you kind of think, well, this is it, and they actually take it a step further, and they flesh out the ending further than I expected them to do, which was really enjoyable. And this is one of those films, too, that in the middle of when I'm giving sort of my review of it, I'm thinking, you know what, I want to go back and watch it again. And I can't say that for a lot of films. I mean, 65, I really enjoyed. Plan on going to watch it again, but I'll probably end up watching Atlas before I go and watch 65 again. And looking back at Brad Payton's credits, whether it's Rampage or San Andreas, I put it on par with those movies. I find San Andreas to be rewatchable. Like I said, I own the Blu-ray, as I do Rampage as well. That is a fun monster movie based off of a video game, one of the better ones. So if you're looking for 2 hours and a fun little science fiction romp that isn't attached to anything else before, where you don't need to have any other previous knowledge, go and check out Atlas. I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. And I hope you enjoyed this review. If you want to drop me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com. Be sure to check out my other podcasts, whether it's the Star Wars podcast, or if you happen to be a Depeche Mode fan, the Depeche Mode podcast. Also, go back and check out some of the past episodes on my A Space Opera podcast, as I've posted this show on not only my Star Wars feed, but also my Space Opera podcast feed, which I don't post regularly on unless there is a movie that I want to go and talk about. I think one of the most recent ones that I posted on there was Avatar. Lastly, before I let you go, if you do enjoy science fiction, I hope you'll check out my science fiction space opera series, Embark. Treat yourself, a friend, or a family member with sci-fi. Written for adults, but it is great for ages 11 plus. 7 books in all in the series. You can follow a ragtag squadron of pilots after Earth faces its end on a journey of survival across the galaxy as they fight for their future among the stars. Available in ebook, free on Kindle Unlimited, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. You can go to Amazon.com and search for John, Jon, Justice, and Embark, Embark. Check out my science fiction space opera series. If you like space opera and you like it to be epic, filled with some romance, really cool technology, and action, Embark is perfect for you. Again, on Amazon.com, search for Embark and John, Jon, Justice. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast. I look forward to hearing from you. I hope wherever you are, you're happy, you're healthy, and you're safe. God bless. Bye.